Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CITAC webinar on Emerging Digital Construction Tools in Construction Site. I am your MC today, Hangi from Construction Industry Council. Today's webinar is co-organized by the Construction Industry Council, the Department of International Trade UK, and Institution of Civil Engineers Hong Kong Association. To begin with, we are delighted and honored to have Engineer Albert Zhang, Executive Director of Construction Industry Council, to deliver a welcome remarks. Albert, please.
Good afternoon and good morning to the friends in United Kingdoms. Welcome to the webinar on Emerging Digital Communication Tools in Construction Sites, jointly organized by CIC, Department for International Trade, and ICE Hong Kong. Hong Kong construction industry has been facing challenges of low productivities, increasing aging workforce, and the tendency to let in innovations and advanced technology adoptions. Adoption of digital technologies can create enormous opportunities for productivity enhancement in design, constructions, operation, and maintenance of the built assets. The Construction Industry Council has been relentlessly advocating digitalization in the industry for improvement of construction productivities, sustainability, and safety. We promote the wider BIM adoptions in the construction industry. BIM and Technology Adoption Survey has been carried out recently, which shows that nearly half of the construction contracts are already implementing different digitalization tools and solutions. Last year, we set up the task force on construction digitalizations to develop the construction digitalization roadmap. It facilitates the industry stakeholders to understand the main focuses which set a path leading us to transform the construction industry as the backbone of a smart city. Last year, CIC and ICE, with the support from DIT, co-organized the webinar on transforming the construction industry through innovations. We invite Sam Stacey, the Challenge Director, Transforming Construction at Innovate UK, to share with us his insight into how accelerating the development and commercialization of digital and manufacturing technologies can support a more efficient, highly skilled, and productive construction industry. The webinar received an overwhelming response from the industry. This year, we keep our momentum on knowledge sharing, and also we collaborate again to organize today's webinar. In this webinar, we have invited Neil Thompson, Head of Construction Innovation Hub Program for the Center for Digital Bill Britton and Director of Digital at Atkins, to deliver a keynote speech on the modern methods of constructions and digital transformations in the UK construction industry. We have also invited Rich Lewis, Director at Revisto, James Flicker, Managing Director at Sunset, and Andrew Laurie, Commercial Director at 3D Ripple, to tell us how digital technologies can enhance communications in the construction industry. Before I hand over the stage to other speakers, I want to say once more on behalf of CIC, welcome. It is a pleasure to see so many of you at this webinar.
Thank you, Albert. And now we will have Engineer Dr. Eric Lee, Chairman of Institution of Civil Engineers Hong Kong Association, to deliver an opening address. Eric, please.
Well, thank you. Albert, Corinne, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ICE, I'd like to thank CIC and Department of Trade for jointly organizing today's technical talk. As many of you may know, ICE is an international professional institution with a long history. ICE represents the voice of over 92,000 members globally, of which over 7,500 are based in Hong Kong. And I'm honored to be the chairman of the Hong Kong Association of this session. ICE has just celebrated the 200th anniversary in 2018, including holding an International Innovation Summit in Hong Kong, which brainstorm some great ideas that are relevant to today's talk. Back to today's talk, which has a theme of emerging digital communication. This reminds me of the IC annual conference, which was held just 3 weeks ago in Science Park. On that day, one of the speakers shared with the participants on smart and digital in construction industry. He quoted the finding from the McKinsey report and highlighted that the construction ecosystem currently is highly complex, fragmented, and project-based, which all contributed to low construction productivity. This is particularly true in Hong Kong. The report went on to say that the industry must innovate and enhance the productivity to consider measures of standardization, harmonization, and integration. I note that today's talk seems to have arranged to address some of the issues raised in the McKinsey report. Our invited keynote speaker, Mr. Neil Thompson, will present his insight on the modern methods of digital transformation in the UK. The other 3 invited speakers today will each share with us their experience in using some tools that could greatly enhance our efficiency and productivity, which are long awaited in our industry. Let's see how much we could learn from them. I look forward to the presentations and wish today's joint event a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. And now we will have Mr. Colin Wilson, Director of Trade and Investment of Hong Kong and Macau, Department of International Trade, to deliver an opening speech. Colin, please.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to today's webinar on the theme of emerging digital communication tools in construction sites. As I said, my name is Corinne Wilson. I'm the Director for Trade and Investment here at the Department for International Trade, based in the British Consulate General here in Hong Kong. Before I give a few opening remarks, I'd just like to thank CIC and Albert Chung and also Eric from ICE for the kind invitation to speak today. Hong Kong's $300 billion a year construction market, combined with the publication in 2018 of the Hong Kong government's Construction 2.0 Time to Change policy document, mean that innovation and technology has to be at the heart of the industry going forward, and arguably already is. At the same time, the current economic climate has everybody looking to increase efficiency and reduce costs. New and creative technological solutions can be a key means by which this can be achieved. That has certainly been the case within Hong Kong's construction industry, which has wholeheartedly embraced and is reflected in this CIC webinar series. This series has previously included Mark Enzer speaking on the UK's experience of enacting digital transformation in construction projects, Malcolm Taylor from Crossrail International on creating digital railways, Sam Stacey from UKRI, and Lorraine Butler from Highways England. Today will mark what I'm sure will be another interesting discussion led by Neil Thompson, head of the Construction Innovation Hub on digital transformation and modern methods of construction. Neil will be followed by first-hand experiences of how the UK is reshaping the construction landscape and promoting and supporting new breakthrough technologies, materials and manufacturing solutions. We are then going to hear from digital pioneers, including Revizto, 3D Repo and Sensor, all leading proponents of integrated collaborative platforms, data capture and digital twin software. In supporting this, we at the Department for International Trade, both in Hong Kong and the UK, will continue to work closely with key stakeholders such as CIC and other industry stakeholders in bringing together more technology companies to Hong Kong, virtually and eventually, fingers crossed, in person, introducing new ways of working and best practices from the UK. In addition, I'd like to mention 2 significant UK documents in this space, namely the Construction Playbook and Construct Zero. The former is a procurement policy document by the UK government setting out how government expects bodies to procure, value and deliver public works. The playbook approach is mandatory for constructing and contracting authorities and sets challenging standards for transformation in the industry. Construct Zero is being led by the Construction Leadership Council in the UK and sets out challenging quantifiable targets to meet net zero carbon emissions. It showcases actions being taken across the wider construction industry on decarbonisation in response to the UK government's challenging climate change policies. Finally, and in conclusion, I'd like to thank again CIC for hosting today's webinar along with ICE. I'm sure it will provide some excellent insights into the adoption of new technologies and practices, and also, hopefully, potential opportunities for future collaboration between the UK and Hong Kong. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of today's seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Corin. Now I have come to our next session. Please feel free to raise your questions into the question tab on the right-hand side of the webinar room and share your view with us in the chat room. We will cover some of the questions in the panel discussion. Now, may I invite Mr. Neil Thompson, Head of Construction Innovation Hub Program for the Center for Digital Build Britain and Director of Digital at Atkins, to come on stage to deliver his speech. Thanks, Neil.
Hello. I'm not sure if I can. Aha, there you go, I can see myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Thompson, Head of the Construction Innovation Hub Program at the Centre for Digital Build Britain, and thank you for the introduction. What I'm going to start with is an introduction to the Construction Innovation Hub and talk about the broadest aspect of the work that we do, and that will be shown by a short video clip that I'll put on in a moment, and then it will be followed by a presentation about a very specific piece of work that I lead around the golden thread, the digitalization work that we're doing for the UK, and then talking about some broader trends about how we are going to improve productivity and the performance of the sector. So I will quickly share this, our introduction to the Construction Innovation Hub, and I'll jump back in after.
The Construction Innovation Hub's vision is a world where our built environment helps society thrive, where our houses, community facilities and transport networks are more resilient, safer and net zero, and our infrastructure is smarter to perform better for users. In 2018, the Hub began a government-funded programme to transform the performance and productivity of the construction sector. We're working with over 100 partners to develop solutions that enable new markets and ensure our built environment is fit for the future. Better decisions are driven by the Value Toolkit, a suite of tools and processes aligned with the government's construction playbook that empowers clients to engage with the supply chain about the outcomes they want and make value-based decisions about the right delivery model, commercial strategy and suppliers for projects, programs and portfolios. The Hub is developing new digital tools and guidance for clients and the supply chain that drive efficiencies and realise the value of data, to help clients get their digital strategy right from the start. Project teams work more closely together. Ensure a golden thread of asset information is curated through life, and generate insights from data to monitor and improve asset performance and compliance with evolving regulations. We're supporting the next generation of digital twins that can be securely connected across organisational and sectoral boundaries. The Hub Platform Design Programme is laying the foundation for a thriving UK market for platform construction systems. We're developing a platform rulebook to show how standardised kits of parts can produce a wide range of beautiful, high-performing buildings and spaces, and tools and guidance to ensure components and sub-assemblies are manufactured and assembled using processes that improve performance, safety, and productivity from factory to site. Together, the Hubs programme will drive an improvement in the delivery and resilience of our infrastructure and a sustainable future for our construction sector. To grow demand, we have partnered with 5 government departments to identify a pipeline of projects that could be delivered using Hub outputs worth £35 billion over the next 5 years. Through collective innovation, we are accelerating change. By working together, we will get there faster. The decisions we make today will shape the future. Be part of the transformation.
So there we go, a broad introduction to the work that we do at the Construction Innovation Hub. And specifically, so in there we spoke about a golden thread. And the golden thread is a stream that I lead, and that stream is all about creating a safe, sustainable and performing industry. And there's some key things in terms of what that enables is one around, and almost most critically is about the technical challenge for hitting net zero trajectories. We all have to work together to work out how our industry can contribute to the reduction of the impacts of climate change. And within that, it's about the, sorry, my slides have disappeared. There we go, thank you. It's also about assuring those products to ensure that the products are fit for purpose inside the supply chain, and we understand the performance of those. It's also very important for international trade. You know, for example, here I'm talking to you today, and in the sense of, we look at other industries and how they've digitally transformed and globalized in quite an innovative way, and the same can happen for our industry. Third is about standards and sharing those. Being able to make data connected and interoperable is really key. And finally, a golden thread enables our ability to implement a platform construction system, and ultimately being able to drive a different type of decision making for the industry based on value, based upon outcomes. So a little bit deeper into my work. Not going to go fully into this. I'm very happy to answer questions on this in the Q&A session, but the golden thread stream is about 6 work streams. One is around safety and assurance. So, how can we get and generate tools that enables people to generate data around the products, data around the organizational objectives of and connecting those together. And that was about standards. So in the UK, we have the UK BIM framework, and how do we drive the adoption of that in industry? There's a stream around developing client maturity. So that's where we host working groups with key client organizations and industry to get them together to benchmark where they are today and map their journey to a coordinated and integrated digital future. Also got this project around government soft landings. What that means is providing the tools to procurement teams that want to buy better outcomes for buildings from a carbon perspective. So ensuring that the carbon emissions that have been designed for the building are the carbon emissions that are actually happening in when you switch this building on. Next is around the work that we do in Cambridge University around the digital twin demonstrators. We've run a series of demonstrators where we've connected certain types of asset to sensors and the internet, and looking at the insights that we get from buildings to bridges, and using satellite technology to track asset performance. And then lastly, around UK housing policy, so looking at how the digital transformation of things like the planning system can enable better outcomes from a social housing perspective. We work in partnership with many government and private and public organizations to create impact for the industry. Now, we spoke about the productivity of the sector at the beginning in the opening speech, and there's there's a key thing here in terms of the performance. So on the screen, you're looking at the labour force productivity for construction in the UK, tracking from 1994 through to today. And we can see, following the financial crisis in 2018, that we've made progress in the productivity of the sector. Now, we're not saying that all these things have delivered all the productivity gains for the sector, but we are showing an upward trend in terms of the work that we have been doing. So starting with the UK BIM strategy launch back in 2011, moving through to the creation of the Centre of Digital Britain, and then the creation of the Construction Innovation Hub, and we can see that our interventions are making the change. And today, we've very recently released a vision for the built environment. So all of the key players in the industry have come together to provide a joint vision on the built environment, which I'll cover more in a moment. But labour productivity is only one part of performance. We could look at other sectors like manufacturing and oil and gas, for example. Those productivity rates are much higher, but their performance from a sustainability perspective is somewhat different. If we look at the kilograms of CO2 produced per unit labour, the CO2 impact of construction workers is much lower. So, may not be making a return from a productivity perspective, but there are other aspects. And looking forwards, yes, we will create a more productive sector, but primarily one is focusing on how does that productive labour point its efforts towards reducing the impacts of climate change. Obviously, creating a more productive industry means that we can have a better quality employment. In the construction industry, we are still putting people in harm's way in harsh conditions. Using technology to support that is key. And mostly, and some of the points about aging workforces and what have you, and social equality is really key. Using it, in the UK, we talk about the levelling up agenda and how we can ensure that productivity is of benefit to those as from a national and international perspective, not just local areas of investment. But how are we going to go about doing that from a megatrends perspective? We're going to hear later on outcomes of these dynamics. So we'll talk about the economics of technology, where the cost of storage, compute, and connecting data is reaching very, very low levels. That has enabled an ability of the cost of prediction becoming very cheap. And on top of that, and especially for our sectors, the cost of robotics has also reduced dramatically as well. And all these things coming together means that we have a very interesting opportunity from a construction innovation perspective. Is the input costs have reached a point where we can experiment in a risk-free aspect from a commercial perspective, but then also it drives a business case and a business model that enables the use of these. But there are consequences. If we think about the digital innovation in finance, for example, when we think about what's happening with Bitcoin, it's reached a point where Bitcoin itself is using as much electronic generation resources as a country, as small countries as that, but still as a country, it raises some questions. Just because all these dynamics of technology means that we can do certain things, should we? How do we broaden the lens of innovation to include the outcomes of that? The other side of that is what we've got on the right hand side here is the number of deaths by risk factor, and up there is air pollution of both indoor and outdoor air quality and the issues that causes. Just because we can build very cheap highways and expand the volume of vehicles that we can place on there, and the dynamics of business models around car ownership means that we've created a lot of polluting and congested roads. Just because we can, should we? And on top of that, an interesting dynamic. So if we think about the cost dynamics in the previous slide, is for example, the cost of sensors is now very, very cheap. should we connect everything to sensors? What's going to be the ecological impact of that in terms of the, are these going to be disposable? How can we create a circular economy for the technology, for digital twins, for example? Just because we could, does it mean we should? Is an important question. So when we're designing our infrastructure, and connecting it to technology, we should and must be mindful of these things. But there is good news. If we look at the so this is sentiment of search in the UK on the internet, essentially. And an interesting thing has happened, and I believe the same will happen in our industry. So this is from retail, that the sentiment of search has changed from find me the cheapest thing to find me the best thing. And that's a key difference, because if we think about our industry that's sometimes chases the cheapest, but sometimes should ask for the best. And if we think of sort of the consumer aspect of this, of shifting from find me the best thing to finding the cheapest thing to finding the best thing, means it will drive the market in a different way. If I'm asking you to give me the cheapest thing, then maybe I wouldn't worry so much about quality. I wouldn't worry so much about its running cost. I wouldn't worry so much about its impact to the environment. But if I'm asking you for the best thing, then you start thinking about, well, what is the long-term impacts of this? What is the reputation aspect of the thing that I'm delivering? What is the quality and what have you? And I think the digital transformation that's driven consumer behaviors in the retail space, I think will map over as we think about the tools that are going to be presented next. These are going to be the tools that drive us to enable people to ask questions about being the best, not being the cheapest. And it's a really key thing about digital transformation, that it gets us to make better quality decisions ultimately. Now, I spoke about our shared vision in the UK for the built environment, and I wanted to leave you with this, because I think it's a key thing that we could sign up to. It's almost, the built environment is borderless from that perspective. We're all trying to build national infrastructure to support our citizens, and I think sharing this vision is really key. And the vision for the built environment is relatively simple. We want to be focused on the outcomes of the things that we are delivering. We want to be focused on connecting the different systems that we have in the built environment. The built environment is a complex web of systems that come together to, that enable people to live, work, and play, move around, etc. And ultimately trying to view the work that we do in the context of services. We are serving a mode of transport. We are serving modes of well-being. We're serving modes of playing sports and modes of education, etc. And sharing these visions key. Now, key enablers of that is around we need new skills and capability and more collaborative ways of working. I mean, we've seen the impact of the pandemic, of how much digital tools have helped us change quickly to being locked down, for example. Sharing processes and information's really key, because information's locked in silos, information's locked in places where we can't gain the insight to create better quality decision making. It has to be done in partnerships, and those partnerships have to be across government, industry, academia, and ultimately the people that are going to use this, the people that are going to experience this every day, the people that it's going to impact their lives, and being focused on the outcomes and designing appropriate and collaborative delivery models. And this ties to the steps that we need to make to do that, and it's not a linear process. It's cyclic in nature. We have to have that vision. The area, what's going to be the direction that we need to point to know that we're making good progress. That then ties back into the policies that we need to make from a public sector perspective, to then drive strategy of procurement of people that buy construction services, but then also the people that respond to those procurements. The supply chain also needs to align its strategy. Also, and finally, how we make action, and then learn from that, feed into the vision, and then we go back as a feedback loop. And then, lastly, and the built environment vision for the UK is available. It's on the internet. If you type in built environment vision to the UK into your search engines, you'll find it, or we'll share a link and get a link to you. But this is what it's all about. It's about connecting our built environment systems with the natural systems and ensuring that there is balance with those, and we're protecting nature and supporting what we need to do from the reduction of carbon emissions, for example, and those being wrapped together into services that enable us to deliver on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And the vision is a first step to this is what we should be aiming for. Let's do that together. And lastly, it's about that communication across different stakeholders. So enough of me. I will then hand you over to our speakers that are going to show you, technology platforms that are using those dynamics that I presented to you previously and turning it into reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Now we will have Mr. Rhys Lewis, Director at Revisto, to come on stage to deliver his speech. Rhys, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start with sharing my screen, firstly. Just let me know when that is coming through, okay.
We can see it, okay.
Perfect, great stuff. Well, let me jump into my presentation here, and we'll make a start. So I'm pleased to be invited, first of all, to be part of this webinar series. Hopefully we'll be able to see you all in person soon, but delighted to share some of the success that we're having here at Revisto and other businesses within the UK to everybody on this webinar, quite a few as well. So thank you for your time, and I hope this session is useful. My talk today is really around integrated collaboration, but throughout the whole the life cycle of a project design, a construction focus today, and operation. So touching on some of the points that Neil just did. So I'm actually in the Revisto application here, as you can see, and I'm just going to run through my slides. So like Neil and others on the call, I've been in industry for a little while now, just over 15 years. My current role is Director at Revisto, and I wear a side hat as well. So I'm involved with the UK BIM Alliance, and I chair the Wales community. And I really joined Revisto after leaving Arup because I saw a really exciting opportunity for us to help industry move forwards. And our goal and vision really was about bringing gaming technology to construction. Something else we've done that I wanted you all to be aware of is we've, great news actually, we're a pre-approved product now as part of CITF, working alongside Digital G locally. And I'm not too sure if everyone on this call is aware, but there'll be an exhibition that will be starting as of July, where Digital G will be able to showcase some of the things you'll see today in Revisto. I'm hoping, just like some of the earlier remarks, that I can join you all in person, but if I can't, the team are there and available to talk to you all as well. To tell you some of the things that many of our clients are doing using Revisto right across the world, actually. So this is just a handful of some of the organizations using Revisto. Neil is working for Atkins and a number of other hats as well. So they're using Revisto on a number of different projects globally, Gamma Construction and many, many others. And you'll see why in a short while. Really, and just one of the points that Neil touched on about engaging and sharing information with all stakeholders, that really is what we're trying to do, is to break down the barriers, move away from the silos in communication across construction projects, and ideally have an integrated collaboration platform throughout the whole project life cycle. So effectively, we end up with a digital estate that asset owner can use, operate, and really take ownership of. Something that benefits everybody across the whole project life cycle. So two things for me, really, as we jump into the technology. How can it be successful? So my opinion is really interoperability, and usability. So one of the things here I'm looking at is the many file formats and authoring tools that Revisto supports. So on there you can see lots of very popular authoring tools and standard industry exchange formats. So if I actually jump into the 3D space here, so we'll move to 2D to 3D, and this takes me to my home view. So I'm actually in the Revisto application now. I'm using my laptop, but I've got the same project and the same the same application and the same project on my tablet as well. So that accessibility piece, what I'm saying there is anybody needs to be able to pick up the project to be able to communicate, which is what we're talking about today. So I'll come back to the tablet in a little bit. Interoperability on the left-hand side here in our object tree, we can start to see there are lots of different file formats. So we have Revit files here. We also have point clouds. We've got our 2D documentation, DGN, you name it. There's pretty much everything you can imagine here. But if I just take a look over here and click on that wall teleport, let's just double click and see what we've got here. We've got an IFC, and within there, I just cut a section through here. I believe, yes, all of this, if I just hover over any one of these objects, it'll start to give me the metadata associated with that object. All of this is from MicroStation. So being able to firstly understand and give that information to anybody is very, very important. The second thing is being able to use that. So using gaming controls, I can really start to navigate through this project and start to ask questions to the project team about a variety of things. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. So we've moved from 2D to 3D. Let's jump to our issue tracker, where I've got a number of preset views here, actually. So our issue tracker really is the core of Revisto. So I can start to filter and search a little bit like a Google search engine, shall we say, to find what I want quickly and easily. So I can start to make smarter decisions sooner. So there are just over 4,000 issues here on our demo project. So on the left-hand side, I've got some preset views where we've got a variety of various types of issues that we see our clients use. So coming back to one of the previous slides that I had here, this one is quite a good one. Issues, I like to refer to these as activities, construction logs. There's a wide variety of use cases we're seeing our customers use Revisto for. So 2D review, you can do all of that in Revisto. 3D review, we can do all of that here as well. We've also brought in our clashes from a variety of clash detection tools, such as there's a number of them. In here we've got some clashes from Navisworks and Celebri, but also site inspection as well. So we can start to see, as the team are taking the project out on the site with a tablet, they can start to capture data in the field and verify if things have been built accurately. So as built verification, and we can go a step further with that with reality capture, where we can now start to bring 360 images directly into Revisto. So I have actually just created a preset view for CIC, and I think in here we've got a little graphic where I've added some of the things we've seen our customers use Revisto for. So as an integrated collaboration platform, we want to allow you to share this information with all of the project stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle, as opposed to switching from 2D to 3D, from one process or one technology to another. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have a platform that will allow us to communicate in a common language for as long as possible, and ideally through into operation? So with that, I'll just start looking at creating some issues here in the application itself. So if I take a look at any one of our floor plans, let's take a look here in 2D. So an important thing to understand about Revisto is the 2D information and the 3D information are tightly connected. What I mean by that is this green icon here, we've pushed all of our drawings and models in via a BIM authoring tool, such as Revit or Tekla or MicroStation. And because we've brought the models and the drawings from these applications, this green icon now really allows me to do some interesting things with the project itself. So I can start to really understand or communicate and coordinate between two different sets of data here. So we've got our 2D information and also our 3D information here, connected in a way that can really help myself understand if this is actually going to work in the construction field, and engage other stakeholders that may not be competent with 3D modeling tools. So this really is a powerful way to help communicate, coordinate, and collaborate on projects. So this could be a 2D document as a PDF that we're overlaying on a point cloud. I think I've got an example of that to share with you as well. So let's do that. Over here, we've got some reality capture data. So again, just using the gaming controls, I can start to navigate through. I believe in this plant room, we've got 3 sets of data. So now I can see a combined set of point cloud data that's been brought in directly through Revisto. All of this now is running in real time on my machine. I've not had to stream this information. I can select, let's make this look a bit better. We can take that, understand all of the object data there that I've selected, and coming back to the point I referenced, if we come back to the mechanical plant room here where we have some drawings, let's go with, what do we have? This one here. Select that green icon again, and that's now going to overlay that drawing here. So we can start to do lots of interesting things here. This can really help with design intent, but we can start to verify as-built information as well. So a really, really powerful tool that we can put into the hands of anybody. So now let's move to how we can manage and create issues in the project or activities. So I've started, what I've done here before we spoke is created a preset issue stamp. So for CIC, and you can see I've started to place these around the project on drawings, models, I've attached some images. All of this is being reported through a web dashboard in real time. So I now have a holistic view of all project information and progress throughout the whole life cycle. This is looking mainly during the design and construction process. So in here I've got clashes, a design review, and at the top we've got a high-level overview of the issues that we're creating in today's review session. So let's start to do that. So I can click on 3D, let's select home here, and we can start to use a number of tools across the top. So I'm just going to click our room option there. That will take me into the center of that room where I can start to take measurements. I can cut sections. There's a variety of measurement tools, but let's just imagine, actually, let's cut a section through there. And we'll take a measurement as well. And for whatever reason, this needs to be wider. So I can now pick my issue here. We've created the CIC predefined stamp that I mentioned. I can pick and place that here. And now that gets logged in our issue tracker. Now what's happened here is that has been logged in the issue tracker in our golden thread, our single source of truth, where all of our project information is stored. So this has actually been assigned to my colleague, Lewis, who's in a different part of the world to myself. Let me just let him know I'm here. And he can now start to communicate with me in real time. We can attach lots of information to that issue. So I can come in here and say, hey, Lewis, please review. And he can then comment back and forth and change status and lots of other creative things here. Now, where we've positioned that issue is intelligent. So if I click on 3D, it now understands where it is in the federated 3D space, but it also understands, because of that XYZ coordinate, where that issue affects any of our 2D documentation. I can now see Lewis has come online, so he's left a comment there to say I'll get onto the team now, and he's changed the status to in progress. So if I come back to my dashboards here and refresh that, we'll start to see that the issues that have populated here in our CIC preset will update. And there we go, 2 of those have now been moved to in progress. Now, I mentioned filtering through our issue tracker a little bit like a Google search analogy. If I come back to 3D, something new that we've added to Revisto, there's a number of tools across the top here where we can start to filter and search in our project based on the metadata associated in these models. So if I just, I don't know, let's click door and right click, that's now identified where all of those doors or any object where the name door is referenced for me. Right click, and there's a number of things that we can do. So let's just isolate those in transparency for now. There are all the doors in that project. I can come down here again, pick on our automated issue creation tool, pick and place. And again, that's logged the issue in our issue tracker, and Lewis can go and deal with that. So the third thing with that, we can now start to where this is really empowering. I mentioned some of the stakeholders that aren't digital technical users of some of these digital tools. We can now start to search for 3D object data and understand that where that is on our 2D documentation. So really, really powerful new way to almost act as a bridge to BIM for a lot of people that aren't used to using some of these authoring tools. What I'm going to do now is just, probably got a few moments left, come here and do that exact same piece of work on my tablet. So I can connect using my tablet. We support a wide range of devices, but everything's been synced in real time. An important thing to mention is, connectivity shouldn't really affect productivity. So on my tablet, I can work offline. Something else that we've included here is appearance template. So I can come in here and there's some predefined templates here. One is actually looking at the status on site of how concrete is being poured. And all of this is being color coded by status. So green has been completed, amber is in progress, red is will be done soon, hopefully. But what I wanted to show you here is our template for design review. So this is based on the MEP system. So I can start to come into the project here. And when I start to spot things that aren't quite right, that need to change, again, on the tablet, it's the exact same process. I pick from my predefined list, pick and place, and that's now logged that issue in our issue tracker for me then to communicate. I can grab my, if I am out on site, a bit of Revista Inception there for you. There we go, smile please. That image has now been logged into the issue tracker, and then we can start to spin out a variety of reports for the project team. So let's put that back there. We'll come back to the application itself and settle down. So one thing I just wanted to finish on is if I come back to the issue tracker, I mentioned how the 2D information and the 3D information is all connected. We can communicate with our colleagues in real time, and all of this is being reported through live dashboards that we can view on our mobile devices, let's say, just through a web browser. The important thing to mention is when we need to go and update the models themselves, let's just show you how that works. So I'm going to select Revit here, click on the issue tracker. So these now are synchronized. So let's say I've assigned this task to a project colleague in another part of the world. They can now pick up this issue and they'll need to go and change or update their model. So what that will do is I've just double clicked on the issue there, and that's taken me directly to my Revit file here with the section box cut. I just come back and look at a clash, for example. Let's go with some of the architectural doors. That will now show me all of those clashes. Double click, and that will take me directly to that area with a section box cut. Again, because of the XYZ coordinate that we're based on, that clash, I can see exactly where it is in 3D, but it'll now also tell me what drawings are affected by that clash. So something that a lot of our contractor clients are using is now the ability to go through their projects level by level in 2D and understand where their clashes are. And that works with 2D switchback and 3D switchback, and again through a variety of tools that we support. So I'm shy on time today, so I think I'll just stop there, or I'll keep going. Let me pull up. I think our details will be shared with you all afterwards, but we do offer the ability for you to test and trial Revista for yourself. It's been a really exciting journey for us, and yeah, I really hope this session is useful for you all that are watching today. So I'll stop there. I hope I'm on time, and hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Now we will have Mr. James Vicker, Managing Director at Sunset, to come on stage to deliver his speech. James, please.
Amazing, thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen as well. If somebody wouldn't mind telling me if they can see that, okay?
Yes, we can see it, James.
Appreciate that, Reece. Thanks so much. So hello, everybody. My name's James Vicker. I'm the Managing Director of Sensat. Sensat as a business was founded in 2015. I think somebody made a comment on a LinkedIn post that is that still a startup? And in reality, probably if it was hard years, 6 years, the answer is probably no. But in reality, the business didn't really kick off until 2018. And I think it's probably kind of testament to James Dean and Harry Atkinson, who worked quite hard on it in the background before really taking it to market. And the initial kind of go-to-market premise was using drone technology or UAVs to capture data of large infrastructure projects, so typically highway schemes, that were removing boots from the ground, so stopping people from doing kind of those manual surveys, removing traffic management, and essentially making people safer, speeding up a process. But what we found is that when we were capturing the data, we really struggled to deliver it to customers and actually get them to utilize that data set in an appropriate manner. And that kind of born the business as to where it is today. So from 2018, we then decided to kind of distinguish our two business offerings. So there's kind of two real services to what we provide that paints a picture of what we now call a common visualization environment. So the first is data, and there's a number of different data sets that are out there today. So data typically is, I'm just conscious that it might have switched screens, so let's click that back to that one. Data typically that's either owned in its entirety by the asset owner, or data that's captured by ourselves, or data that's captured by your supply chain. What then happens with that data about bringing it to life is the environment that we've then created, so essentially the platform. So when I'm talking about data, in the first instance, it was point cloud data that then moved to things like 2D orthomosaic imagery, that then moved to CAD and then 3D modeling, and then finding an environment to bring that all to life and really democratizing that data set across an asset lifecycle. So going from the asset owner through to the engineering consultancy, through to the general contractor, finding value all the way along. So essentially, why we built this is because there's three key areas which we call the information lag that we feel is a major part of why civil infrastructure projects are over budget. So information is slow to collect. So the example I gave in a very manual fashion is if I'm doing topographical surveys, I'm manually having to go out to site and capture that data. If I'm asking somebody to measure the area of a roof, I might have to get them to put scaffolding around a building. I might have to get them to get permits. I might then have to get them to go up onto that roof and manually conduct a survey. Once that data is then captured, information is often siloed. So this is something that we heard previously, that it can sit in different file formats, it can sit in different people's computers, it can sit in different hard drives, it can actually sit on different bits of paper that are plastered across construction walls. So this means that information is only accessible to single people. Then information tends to go missing. So once I have all of this great information, I can then get that lost. And then there's rework and resurveys, which means if I bring all of those things together, that creates a huge information lag. So at Sensat, we really want to change that process. We want to allow computers to be able to understand the real world that we live in, but start to automate some of these processes. So by using technology, we can capture data exponentially faster. So using new data capture methods like drone technology, but also having a platform to be able to conduct some of this analysis. So to be able to conduct those measurements that I mentioned makes those things exponentially faster. Making it available in a cloud-based platform that's accessible to anybody on a project, that's easy and intuitive to use, again, makes those things exponentially faster, and making sure it's usable. So data sets that really can be brought to life through a very simple way to then have the conduction of those measurements or calculation or visual analysis to anybody on a project means that essentially we can then start to do some interesting things. So today, we've predominantly worked in the UK, and as I said, where we are now as a business is probably still coming out of that startup era. In 2018, we really went to market with our proposition of data plus platform, and that saw us win 40 tier 1 AEC companies, predominantly in the UK and some outside of the UK, working on schemes like HS2, which is the high-speed network between London and Manchester, a couple of 100 kilometers linear, bringing that data set to life across the asset lifecycle. Working on schemes like the Heathrow expansion program, which is a big international airport in London, looking at capturing the data of the entirety of the expansion program, starting to overlay the potential designs for stakeholder engagement, and also working on things like the M25, which is obviously the most hectic system in the UK for traffic, and really bringing that data set to life from a maintenance perspective as well. So we're finding ourselves working in a number of different sectors with a number of different clients with a number of different use cases. Now, I just want to bring this to life a little bit for you with a platform demo. So I'm going to take that in a second. But really where we are today and where we're moving forward is not just about the data that we can capture from survey methods, but also some of the existing data sets and live data sets that are coming through. So we're starting to paint the picture. And I think it was mentioned earlier, instead of selling a complete digital twin or a simulated environment, actually we're taking step changes in construction to lead towards that point. So we've built a platform that allows us to ingest both static and live data sets. So one of the first steps for us is just to understand what's on site. So we can ingest things like point cloud data, the 2D and the 3D information. We can then start to overlay additional information into that. So it might be IoT sensors for temperature, noise, vibrations, etc. We can then put descriptive data in there and also things like general weather data. So we're really starting to build up a picture in this one environment that's actually accessible to anybody on a project. We've then built in a number of different tools that allow you to do things like earthwork calculations, as an example, which is a very quick, easy tool that allows you to start to quantify things that are going on site. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to switch screens and just bring the platform to life for you guys. So if, again, I can get someone to just give me a nod when you can see the platform screen. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's okay.
Thanks, Reece. You're my man on this. I appreciate that. So what you're looking at here is some point cloud data from a site that we captured. So this is Perry Bar. It's the Commonwealth Games Village that's being built in the UK. And as you can start to see this bring to life, this site's probably about 2 kilometers squared. So not a huge site, but fairly sizable. And what I'm able to do here is just zoom in and out and start to engage with my construction site. Now, you'll see there's a number of different messaging on here: site, compound, cut and fill, building analysis. And if I just zoom out, you can start to see some other aspects here on the left-hand side. So what you're actually looking at here is a number of different data sets. So to bring that to life a little bit, I'm just going to take the point cloud survey and reduce the opacity of it so you can start to see the underground drainage models. So now we're able to see the above ground and the below ground in the same place at the same time. On the left-hand side, what we also have is we've got the exterior walls of the building. So we're able to start to put this into context of where it might be on the actual site itself. So things like this become really powerful because then I can start to make really informed decisions, not just based on my design data, but actually putting that in a contextualized environment. So again, working with asset owners to engineering consultancies right through to general contractors, all working from this same hymn sheet. So the underground models that I've shown are actually a number of different aspects. So we've got the water mains, the sewage mains, the gas mains, the fiber cables coming through here. And I'm able to kind of toggle these on and off. And as I toggle these on and off, you'll start to see them being removed from the model. And again, what I can do is take the real life data, the design data, and merge the two, and then start to do things like progress monitoring to start to see how I'm doing against the design plans that are in there. Now, I mentioned a couple of the engineering tools or engineering grade tools that we can use, but they're also useful for other aspects as well. So we've got an annotation tool, which is incredibly useful if I want to add additional data into my model. So what I've just done is I've chosen a point on site, which has given me my XYZ coordinates. really powerful if I'm working on a big scheme. Actually, I want to highlight a specific point. It might be an access point. It might actually be for things like health and safety tracking. I might want to report an incident, create an annotation here, and upload files to then create a fly to point. So I've got an immutable record. And again, something was mentioned earlier, a golden thread of activity that's going on. This will give me a timestamp of when it's created. I can add a description to what's going on here. So this could be a health and safety message. This could be a delivery message, but it could also be something like permissions, because I'm able to attach here PDF files, Excel files, certifications, whatever it might be, onto that point, which means that I know exactly what's going on at any given time. I'm just going to delete that to make sure that this stays relatively clean. I've then got a line measurement tool, which I can quickly make that calculation. And as I said to you earlier, as the example, if I asked you to calculate the area of a roof or the length of a road, you'd have to manually go there. Now, one of the things that we saw last year with COVID is the rise of remote working. And having tools like this is really powerful to allow you to do some of those simple calculations that you would typically have to do on site from the comfort of your own home, but in a far more accurate way. Because as I say, if we start to layer in this information, it then starts to remove human error. Again, I can make a description of this. It becomes an immutable record. I've got things like zoning tools, which is really useful for a couple of things. Firstly, for kind of my basic area calculations, but also to highlight to anybody who has access to the platform where potential work zones might be. This could then become a danger zone. It could be something that I'd want somebody to not go into, or it could equally be something that is the priority work area, which means that when I capture new data, I can focus on this zone and see the progress for that specific area. Conscious of time, so I want to kind of show a couple more bits, because what I'm showing is fairly sizable in terms of a model, and actually what we've spoken about previously, and completely agree with Reese, like the future of construction is interoperability. It's the ability to play with others nicely. We do use kind of the phrase democratization of this use of data. So we really believe in this push-pull element. So being able to take data out of this model and into your existing softwares, but equally data from existing softwares into this model. So I can use things like the cropping tool, which I can then cut out a certain area, which will then allow me to import that into my software. But equally, I can do exactly the same. Now, that can be done one of two ways. That can be done in a manual process through my file formats, or it can be done through direct API integration. So that might be with your existing common data environments, your project management softwares, your BIM softwares will be able to make that integration and grow and scale with that software business, and equally with your project and the project lifecycle. Now, just briefly, I'm just going to come into the 2D environment because that's equally important. Another number of use cases here in terms of asset inspection, all the way through to kind of similar types of things of use cases to logistics management. I've got the basic tools on the left-hand side, so the annotations, line and zoning measurement tools as well. So a few different things, that the use cases that come from this, but as you can start to see, and now I'm starting to build a bit of a picture of my site that starts to walk towards that digital twin environment and a number of different use cases that can come from it. So what Sensat is leaning towards is what we call the common visualization environment, and that is the lens in which we believe we want construction companies and asset owners and engineering consultancies to really start to look at things through a common lens that gives us that golden thread from what site activity is. So I'll pass back over. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time, and I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, James. Now we will have Mr. Andrew Lauren, Commercial Director at 3D Repo, to come on stage to deliver his speech. Andrew, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for the introduction. Some great presentations so far. Let me just share my screen with you guys. Okay, perfect. So today I'm going to be taking you through the 3D Repo digital platform for BIM data. As I said, I'm Andrew Lauren. I'm the commercial director at 3D Repo. Been with the company since 2017. My background has been in 3D technology for the past 10 years, working for companies such as SolidWorks and Graphisoft ArchiCAD. So today I want to give you a brief introduction to the platform as a whole, and then take you through some of the newer features that we've added in the last couple of months to the platform. So first of all, it's good to start off with what 3D Repo is. So we are a digital platform for managing your BIM data. We're not a common data environment as such, but we work with your common data environment to enhance your BIM workflow. And we founded the company for a few key reasons. The first one being that BIM software is just far too complex. It's on the market today. So you've got your Revit, you've got your Navisworks, Civil 3D, any tool that you might be using, but they're not the tools for everyone. They're the tools for the authors or the people analyzing the data, but everyone still needs to access that data and be able to view it and manage it in their own way for their own purpose. And if we don't do that, what we found is that BIM just creates more knowledge silos of people who have access to data and people who don't. We've spoken about interoperability in all of the presentations today, I think, and it is obviously a big issue. 3D Repo tries to deal with that in a number of ways. One, by supporting the open formats, but also by giving you access to those proprietary formats. But most importantly, by not keeping it as proprietary. So we believe that data should not be locked into any format. If you're working in a platform that stores things in its own proprietary format, you're going to end up in a world of hurt as your project starts to progress, especially as you start to move into the realms of asset management. So wherever we take any data into 3D Repo, we open it up and we store it as open data in the database that you always have access to and can always move and use however you need to. And finally, we realize that every project's different. So we're a great believer in open collaboration and APIs. If you're working with a platform that doesn't have an API, you're locking yourself into a particular workflow of that vendor and not allowing yourself to connect in with the wider world. So the 3D Repo platform itself, we ingest 3D models and BIM data from all of your major providers. We put them up in the cloud and break them down and store them in an open database. So every object within your BIM model, every piece of data within your BIM model is stored in an open and accessible database in the cloud. We then serve this up to our users through a number of products on our platform. The first product, our flagship product, the one I'll be talking about mainly today, is 3D Repo IO. So this is our platform for federating models together and running your normal clash change detection. We've got all of the issue tracking built in. You can run automated data validation on the models as they come in based on rules that you've set up. You can integrate it with GIS data. And the thing that I'll be talking about mostly today is our safety-based feature, which is our 1192 Part 6 compliant register for managing your health and safety data within a BIM environment. We also have another product on there called Plan-Base. So this allows you to pull those same models into a public-facing forum for use in public consultation, so allowing the general public to see your schemes and feedback on them before you get planning consent. And we do have, finally, a free product called 3D Send, which anyone's free to use. You go to 3dsend.com and it kind of works like a WeTransfer for sending 3D models, but you can also view those models live within a web browser without the need for downloading or purchasing software such as Revit or Navisworks. And finally, anything that you put into 3D Repo can also be pulled down into live game engines. So for anyone creating digital twins within tools such as Unity and Unreal, 3D Repo offers a really streamlined pipeline for that management so that your digital twin applications constantly update every time the 3D Repo database is updated by your users. And all of this is underpinned by our open API, which allows us to connect to any product that has an API as well. So these connections, these are just some of them that we have at the moment, vary in complexity from published applications on the App Store, on the Autodesk App Store for Navisworks and Revit, through to where we've taken the Synchro format and embedded it into our product. And then much simpler ones where you can pull your data as you want from 3D Repo into custom dashboards in things like Power BI, or even pull your data down into things like Google Sheets. In terms of data consumption, you can upload models through plugins. That's fine. We have plugins for all the major Autodesk tools. You can directly upload a lot of formats as well. So if you don't have access to Revit or Bentley MicroStation, you can just upload the file directly to 3D Repo and we can understand it. But the bit that we're really excited about and the bit we're working on the most is our connections to CDEs, because we believe that without a connection to your common data environment, any model collaboration platform is just breaking your ISO 19650 way of working. So if we're following a true BIM collaboration platform, we need that common data environment with the full approved work in progress archived process, which we don't have in 3D Repo, but it already exists on your project in your common data environment. So we believe in connecting there and getting all the data from that one central place. And these are the companies that we're working with so far. Others are coming on board soon. So this is 3D Repo. When you log in, you can run around models, federate them together, and run lots of different processes around model federation and issue tracking, risk mitigation. 4D sequencing is one of the things I'll be showing you a bit later on, and the data validation stuff that I spoke about earlier. In terms of our customers, a lot of the same customers as everyone else has mentioned so far. I guess people are using multi-platform, which is great. But yeah, it tends to be tier one contractors and multidisciplinary consultants. One of the things I don't think we've spoken about too much today is security, which we take very seriously at 3D Repo, especially when we're talking about cloud-based platforms. So 3D Repo is an approved UK supplier. We have ISO 9001, 27001, and the platform's fully developed in the UK, in London, and all data is encrypted, whether it's at rest or when it's being transferred to you. So it has the same security as internet banking levels of security. In terms of hosting, we also believe that your data should be hosted wherever you need it to be. So our main version that you can sign up and use today is hosted in London. There's a separate instance in Montreal for our North American customers. But we can spin up 3D Repo as a private instance on any of the major cloud suppliers as well. So if you do have a particular requirement about where your data needs to be, that's possible. And it is even available as an on-premise solution if that's something that, that your project really requires. So up next, a bit of an exciting announcement for us today. So this is today's news, fresh off the press today, and there will be some press releases going out later. But we have just signed a strategic partnership with Gammon and the and Digital G. This is to cover the promotion and distribution of 3D Repo for Hong Kong, Singapore, and Macau regions. But also covering a lot of collaborative R&D. So over the past 18 months of working with Gammon, we've done lots of research into possible integrations, one of which we're showing here on the screen with Motive Force. And we plan to continue that under this strategic partnership. And finally, the expanded use of 3D Repo on Gammon projects, which I'll talk a bit more about later as well. Finally, if you do want to learn any more about 3D Repo in this region, you can contact Andy Wong at Digital G, who'll be taking over from us for the region's promotion and distribution. So on to the product. So I don't want to go through too much today, going deep into every single feature, but I want to concentrate on one. So that's our safety-based feature. This has been developed in the UK in partnership with a number of organisations, including Mott MacDonald, Atkins, HS2, and Costain and Balfour Beatty. And this is a tool for managing your health and safety data within a BIM environment. So it allows users collaborative access to your BIM models, where they can upload and identify risks, classify those risks based on the PAS 1192 Part 6 standard, which will soon be part of the ISO 19650 suite. Assign that responsibility to someone on the project, then link into our treatment plans from the Health and Safety Executive in the UK that are constantly being added to by our users and by the HSE to get approved plans of how to deal with risk. And then, like with anything within 3D Repo, it allows you to collaborate, discuss, and find the best solution, whilst also links back to the authoring tool, as many others have shown today, to be able to view that information within Revit or Navisworks, make the changes and re-upload the model. So this was great process, and this is something that's been out for about a year now, so it's not too new, but very much focused on design stage, I guess. So we wanted to know how we could take that further into pre-construction. Obviously, for pre-construction, a flat time of a model, the finished product isn't that useful. So what we did is we partnered with HS2 and Synchro to integrate the Synchro format into 3D Repo. So here, as we load up the model, you can see this is now a Synchro model coming directly from there. We can navigate around, as you'd expect, but now we've got it more in a construction phase. So we can see here a lot of the temporary works is included, but this again is still looking at a snapshot in time. It's useful to a degree because we can see that in that snapshot some of the risks that might be available. So we could then go and mark those up and assign those to people. But the bit that really excites us is how we can bring in the timeline, the sequencing, the construction sequence to the project. So by having that sequence information, we can go into our new sequences tab and open up the sequence, which will take us back to the start of the project, and we can start picking dates that we want to move to. This allows us to see the progress or how the progress should be at that date, or even the exact time, and things will change. And then we can come into the sequencing tool and start to pick a step interval. So here I'm going to say, right, let me see what happens if I move through this every 6 days. And it's going to step through and show me the progress on that project as things progress at 6-day intervals. So here we're going through the design phase, and now we're into the pre-construction, so we can see temporary work starting to come in. We can then stop this at any point and drag and drop through the project just using the scrubber. So really useful to be able to understand how things are progressing, and really understand what risks are being taken. We've all got the list of all the activities that are happening, so I can click on any activity and get the information. This is all coming directly from Synchro, which has probably been linked to your P6, so it's the real planning information, and we can skip between the planned start date and finish date of a particular activity. We can also then get a full list of all the activities on the project. We can search them, we can look through. I can say here I want to jump to a different level and say, right, go to the planned start date of that one, and move through. So we've got access to every activity that's going to happen in the project, and it's all fully linked to our model. But then what? Because I know we can obviously do this in a lot of different tools at the moment for review, but where it becomes really powerful is when we start to link it with the safety-based tool. So if we click on one of these risks, we now have risks that are linked in with the sequence. So our risk understands time of when that risk is applicable, because a risk or an issue on a project at the construction phase doesn't really exist forever. It exists for the time that that activity is taking place. So now we've got a full list of risks linked in with the time information, so we can understand when they're applicable and how we can deal with them better. And these can obviously then be assigned to the subcontractor or consultant that's responsible for that particular activity. So then what? We've got all this information. We then need to be able to communicate it with people. So I'll move on to linking. So again, through our API, we can link out to Power BI or any other reporting tool, but Power BI is our internal tool of choice. And we've just released a model viewer directly for Power BI now. So your 3D models from 3D Repo can be loaded into Power BI and linked to the data that you've got coming either from 3D Repo or from an external source. So here we're linking it to our quality reports, which are coming from a partner product of ours called EviFile. And we can see the quality reports that have been raised against particular elements within the BIM model. So this is where the power of the API comes in, because we've got different tools doing different things on the project. We can make sure that the best tool for the best job is always being used, and information can flow seamlessly between those products. So I think that pretty much brings me to the end of my presentation. The last thing I would say is if you do want to learn any more about 3D Repo, and especially what Gammon are doing with 3D Repo, they will be presenting at our own webinar next week with Digital Construction Week Fringe series, along with a few of our other customers and integration partners. I will put this link in the chat soon, but if anyone does want any more information, they can email me directly, andrew.norrie@3drepo.com, and do feel free to sign up for a free 3D Repo account to trial any of this at 3drepo.com as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Now we have come to the panel discussion. We are delighted to invite Mr. Wan Kai Hong, Regional Director, Hong Kong at Institution of Civil Engineers, as today's moderator, along with our guest speakers, Neil, Reese, James, and Andrew. Now I will pass the time to our moderator, Hong, please.
Thank you. This is Hong, and I'm the Regional Director of ICE Hong Kong. So thanks a lot for Neil for your high-level overview of the works of Center of Digital Built Vision. And also thank you, Reese, James, and Andrew sharing the wonderful cloud-based solution that you provide to facilitate the communication of construction sites. So we received many questions from the audience. So I try to go through a few of them, and I've picked a few questions. It would be great if you guys can share your wisdom with our audience. So I think all the presentation today is around digital transformation, which is really important to the industry. And he said that digital transformation is less than just technologies, but more about people. There are risks associating with digital transformation, and many stakeholders are in fact reluctant to change. So could you share your view in this regard with your first-hand experience in driving digital transformation? So may I invite Neil first to share your view, and then the other speakers, please.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I was just thinking, I'm almost a year or two away from applying technology in the construction industry for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of different ways of doing that. And I think, and there's two parts of it. One is, you know, it's when we're applying these technologies, we really do have to think about the problem that we're looking to solve, because I think where we've seen the application of technology that hasn't performed so well has always been about focusing here's a piece of technology, let's try and find a way of implementing it. You know, if you think of some of the the great presentations we've just seen, you know, they're very much focused on solving a particular issue. So you know, if you think about Reese's work is about, you know, that design management aspect and making sure people have got the same window into, you know, I think I liked Reese's point about it's not about dealing with issues. It was dealing with tasks. There's a task to complete, and how do you track that? You think about Senset, about being able to see the macro aspect of the information is really key, and integrating sort of that huge view of the data, and then through into Andy talking about how do we manage safety. So I think that's the key bit, is that what is it that you're actually trying to fix. Don't focus on the technology, focus on the problem that you're trying to solve. And then the other side of that coin is then, this is what I call the work about work. So the work that we do sort of splits into two areas. One is sort of the admin and the process management piece, and then the other bit is the value adding bit, solving the problem, finding a way forward and what have you. And we want to minimize the work about work and maximize the time that we have to collaborate, maximize the time to go and solve that problem in the best way. So back to my point about the best versus cheap is, we can still be cheap, but then still deliver the best if we focus our resources on getting the job done, not doing the work about work.
So thanks Neil for your sharing. Would Riz, James, or Andrew like to add your view in this question, please?
I'm happy to jump in. Like, I fully agree with Neil. I think that when you think around digital transformation, it's a huge thing. And what does it actually mean? I think you need to think about the first steps you're going to be taking, and thinking about the problems that you're looking to solve and how you solve that. And I think also, typically digital transformation is reserved for a team or a consultant or for somebody else. And actually, everybody should be empowered to make a change digitally in their workflows. There's lots of solutions out there to problems that you face every day. It's more around trying to find them and having the foresight or oversight to go and find them. So think about your existing workflows, thinking about what your existing problems and pain points are, spending some time around that as an individual, and then think about how you could potentially do that digitally. That's a start of a journey. Digital transformation isn't something you just end up with. It's a longer journey that's constantly evolving, in my opinion. And so I do think that it is down to the individual in its entirety, because the first thing is around finding that solution. The second thing is more around adoption of that technology within that organization, because what we've seen at Sensat is that we can be quite successful at project level, but actually to try and drive that to further projects is actually quite challenging, because everybody works in such a siloed capacity. So how do you further drive that digital adoption of the technology that you're trying to drive into the business, and change the mindsets to get people to use that? And for us, I think that's also down to us as kind of vendors, if you will, is to try and help support the ROI conversation and the major benefits that it can bring.
I'll jump in as well if you'd like. So I agree with the comments from both gentlemen. I think the biggest challenge really is who's driving that change and why. I think most of the success we've seen from some of our clients, where they've really planted those seeds at the grassroots and allowed those benefits to grow and flourish throughout projects. So there's a great reference site that we've got. It's actually one of the universities where their digital estates team have come back, and I think it was you, James, that mentioned that common lens. What they've tried to do, sort of partnered with ourselves, is not changed too much in the process now in terms of how the team are working, but really help digitalize some of their traditional processes. So that's where we can help with our gaming-based technologies, almost in a way, not trick, but encourage users to digitalize their traditional processes. So they're not doing too much differently, but in the background, our technology is masking that and saving on average users about an hour a day. And if that end user sees that benefit, then I think that will encourage that digital transformation to only speed up. And that helps everybody then on the project. If you've got a directive from a client or a contractor to say, let's do this in a common way or a common platform, then that really does help a project succeed, and us as an industry.
So I think there's a few.
Shall we move to the next question, please?
Sorry, can I just jump in on that quickly?
Around the procurement system. So transactional procurement system, which is very common in construction industry, creates additional hurdles for adoption of new technologies. May speakers share their view on how to overcome these challenges? How could one reach a balance between the cheapest and the best? So I sure Leo already have some initial feedback on the webinar chat room. So may I invite Leo to give more elaboration on his view on this question, please?
Yeah, it's one of these difficult to boil it down to a sound bites, I guess. But it's, we take a look at the technologies we've seen today, right? So let's think about how would you have made a decision in the absence of those tools? So we think about paper-based driven processes and the background costs of that, and on top of that, the kind of impacts that you have in the long run with the decisions that you've made. So if you're looking at a 2D plan, for example, having to use your imagination to extrude that into what this looks like in real life becomes a risk. And that can convert into operational inefficiencies in the future. I know that Reece, for example, in his presentation was showing plant rooms. The inefficient layout of plant rooms can have an impact on carbon emissions. It can have an impact on the operational cost, because if you don't coordinate that plant room to the human experience of maintaining it, it becomes expensive to maintain. Things might get in the way, or you might have to do other types of work to move things out of the way because it hasn't been designed properly about sort of plant removal strategies and what have you. So this is what it's about. It's about that. How do you go about making a decision? And those decisions being able to consider as much about the future as possible in terms of its operational use. And that operational use kind of splits into two things, right? It splits into the pounds and pence that it costs, but then it's also the impact that it has on the environment in terms of carbon emissions, embedded carbon, the materials, etc.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. So would Andrew, James, or Reece add in your view in a solution provider perspective?
I'll jump
procurement system be improved to
I'll
encourage
jump
more
in.
of new technologies?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, one of my pet hates at the moment is procurement of technology and filling out spreadsheets about what 3D Repo can and can't do. Like, to me, it's just absolute madness, and we're using that procurement model that that construction companies use to buy materials and other things to try and apply it to technology, and it's just madness, because what we, as 3D Repo, we'd like to think of ourselves as a consultative technology vendor. There's so much stuff out there. We've seen 3 platforms today that, look, there's not, from 6 feet away to a CEO, they're the same thing, right? It doesn't, if you're not using it, it doesn't matter. Looking over someone's shoulder, they're no different. So I think in terms of how you deal with this, you've got to really run pilots. There's no other way than to try, first of all, really nail down what your requirements are and make sure that the product fits that requirement and meets that need. But then after that, you've really got to try the software. Just running it off of a spreadsheet says yes is a mad way to procure technology, and then combining that with who gave you the cheapest price. I won't, but there's some horror stories going on in the UK at the moment about how these projects have overrun where people have tried to do that. So I think try before you buy is always my advice.
I think the other key bit, sorry to jump in, I know I've already spoken, is I'm quite keen to shift. We talk about shifting views of how the supply chain works, and I think bringing technology vendors in as peers of the supply chain is really key, because we talk about tier 1 suppliers from a consultant contractor perspective, but the technology firms play in as an important role. So how can we reconfigure that relationship so they can have a seat at the table? Because at this moment in time, there are a few degrees of separation away from that key conversation around how you buy this stuff. They generally go through a filter of agreeing a contract with a consultant or a contractor or some sort of alliance or what have you. But if I want to give a piece of advice on how do we get from cheapest to best, is think about technology in a different way. Don't treat them as just a supplier. Yeah, as Andrew's saying, that consultative element of a technology company is really key.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Neil, and thank you, Andrew, for your sharing. So shall we move to the next question? Yes, this question is to Reese, James, and Andrew. So all your solutions is about handling a large amount of data. It may be BIM data or digital data or data collected by UAV. So it implies the using that your solution may require substantial processing power from computer. So how can you ensure users can access the data that they want in a reasonable speed?
I think from a Sensat perspective, well, and I think from an industry perspective, it's what is a reasonable speed? What is the data that you're wanting to visualize? What is it the data you're wanting to access? How frequently are you updating it? So there's a bunch more questions that I'd want answers to, but I think what we have done in the past is where we've worked on huge programs before. I think when we did HS2 or the Heathrow expansion program, we captured about 36 square kilometers of data. And in terms of getting that data to the users, we did an iterative delivery model. So we kind of captured and processed kind of on an ongoing basis that allowed the model to kind of build iteratively. And that sped up the delivery process for the end customer. When we work on progress monitoring on site, we will often capture and process on the same day and have it in the hands of the users. And that could be kind of a 24, 48-hour turnaround, depending on the size and scale of the project. So it really is more around understanding what the requirements are from the customer and understanding kind of what the use cases and the needs are to then give the best delivery speeds. That would be my perspective.
I'll jump in there, James, I suppose. Some similar thoughts. For us, it's slightly different. So, I mean, that's one of the big successes, I believe, for us, is being able to handle very large data sets. And some of the things I showed today, using our application to view that project data on a tablet without an internet connection, has proven invaluable, especially for construction teams out on site that don't necessarily have access to the internet. So that's not really a challenge we foresee. But I think what is becoming a general challenge for the industry is the need and the appetite for more data. So one of the things we're seeing more and more of now is point cloud data. I was part of a panel discussion yesterday with Faro, and yeah, they're just handling gigabytes, terabytes sometimes of scan data. And we were able to compress 70 gigabytes of a church it was, and deliver that to somebody on a tablet. So that tends to work quite well. But indeed, as models and data increases, then processing power definitely needs to be considered. But coming back to the previous questions, I think it was cost versus quality. What is it you want, and what do you want to achieve? People need the right tools and hardware to deliver the best asset, right? Andrew?
I think from our point of view as well, there's a piece that users need to be aware of only get the data that you need. So where we see some huge BIM models now, and realistically, no one needs access to all of it for the whole thing. I mean, the only purpose would be visualization, but that's one thing. But realistically, it's making sure the person has the right data at the right time, and they only get the data that they need, because otherwise we're passing around huge data sets for no reason. So that's why 3D Repo operates a database at the back and gives that API to people pull just the information that they need from it, not the whole project.
Yeah, thanks for your sharing. So shall we move to our final question, please? Yes, this question is probably from a potential user in Hong Kong. So all companies are based in the UK. May I know if you are interested in Asian market, say Hong Kong? How will you provide local support for implementation of your solution in local markets? So
I can jump in first if you'd like. I mean, I'm based in the UK. It's a thick Welsh accent you can hear. Been lucky enough to travel the world, but we've grown quite considerably over the last 2 years. So we actually operate a global business, a digital business. So we have a team in APAC. We're partnered, like Andrew, with Digital G. So they're on the ground in Hong Kong and Singapore. So you can speak to those. We've got a team in America and throughout Europe. So definitely interested to help anybody that can benefit from using our application, regardless of where they are in the world. So yes, we're interested, absolutely.
From a Sensat perspective, almost identical response, but except we don't quite have the footprint that Reece and his team does. We work with Digital G, and they're kind of our representatives over in Hong Kong. Very interested to help and support them. We do have an office in Brazil, which allows us to kind of have extended service operating hours. So we will be able to cover the majority of service and responded requests, but working closely with Digital G to drive the proposition into that territory and that market.
Yeah, I guess same answer for me as I said earlier. So yeah, Digital G will be providing our local support on the first line, and we'll be doing second line support. But yeah, it's definitely become a major focus for our organisation now for the next year.
Great. It's glad to know that you all are interested in the Asian market in Hong Kong. So if any audience would like to work with this company, please get in touch with Reece, James, and Andrew. So that comes to the end of our webinars. Thanks again for all the speakers for their informative and interesting sharing, and to audience for your participation. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and see you soon in future events. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.